Hello everyone and welcome back to Xbox Nation. My name is Fletcher and this is the video where we take a look at the upcoming Xbox and Game Pass games for this week and to see if any of them are worth your time and or money. This week is looking pretty great overall in all honesty, and we have some massive and highly anticipated games coming over the next 7 days. So which ones are going to be worth your time? Well, let's find out. Horror fans might want to brace themselves because Crisol Theatre of Idols is our first title landing this week and is shaping up to be something seriously special. Even as someone who traditionally avoids horror games like the plague, this one has absolutely grabbed my attention as it's published by Blumhouse Games. Diving a little bit deeper into this one, it is set in Hispania, which is a twisted, nightmarish reimagining of Spain. The character you play as is called Gabriel, and he is a soldier that's been chosen to carry out a divine mission for the sun god. The hook here is going to be wild though. Essentially your own blood is both your health and your ammunition. Every shot you fire brings you closer to death, forcing you to constantly weigh survival against aggression. You can combine that with disturbing enemy designs, strong gunplay and environmental puzzles, and you've got a genuinely fresh take on the genre. It looks absolutely insane, it's well on my radar, and it finally lands on the 10th of February. Relooted is a game that I've actually highlighted a couple of times now, but we had a surprise earlier this week that it's now coming day one onto Xbox Game Pass. This one is being made by a small South African game studio, which is already a surprise as we never really get games from this region, but the concept that they're actually going for is pretty decent as well. As a whole, it is an African futurist parkour heist game featuring real artifacts looted from their countries and currently held in Western museums and private collections. You will then go out and do all of these heists after assembling a crew of different characters, each of them with their own unique abilities, and then do stuff like parkour, fighting, solving puzzles, and so much more. Apparently, there are going to be over 70 artifacts for you to recover, so there does seem to be a decent amount of content to dive into for a relatively low price point. It does land on the same day as Crisol, and yes, it's also day one, as I mentioned, onto Xbox Game Pass. Now, if you've ever played a Suda51 game, you already know that things are about to get pretty weird, and Romeo is a Dead Man looks like it's going to be fully embracing that reputation when it drops on the 11th of February. This is a third-person, single-player action-adventure game where you will step into the shoes of Romeo Stargazer, and you'll be bouncing between over-the-top combat encounters and quieter side missions that let you control the pacing. From the early previews from different outlets out there, it doesn't sound like the story itself is meant to be taken at face value. It's more about how it's delivered alongside all of those flashy visuals, absurd humor, and sudden tonal shifts. These are the kinds of games that are impossible to kind of explain properly until you play them yourself. I've actually been keeping a close eye on this one because love or hate them, Suda games are always very different and I bloody love them. We don't have to wait long now to see how this one lands, but I have a feeling it's going to be pretty decent. I've kept my eye on Starsand Island for a little while now, as the Studio Ghibli sort of art style alongside that promise of a cozy game like Stardew Valley has me really intrigued. I can see that this one will centre around one character, escaping the hustle and bustle of city life and then embracing island life by tending to her own farms, fishing, raising animals and just learning the secrets of the friendly locals. It does seem to go a little bit deeper than I ever expected as well, as apparently we can go into the depths of the island, find stuff like rich mineral veins, rare treasures and ancient ruins. I'm kind of surprised to also mention that the game will now be including a ton of combat as well, which I certainly wasn't expecting, and it kind of looks quite cool with these little boss encounters. I am hoping this game does very well as it is the studio's first outing and it does look pretty incredible. And oh yeah, before I do forget, it's also day one onto Xbox Game Pass. Yakuza fans are getting seriously spoiled with this next drop today, because it's not just going to be one release, it's actually two in one package. Yakuza Kiwami 3 gives a much needed facelift to one of the series' more controversial entries. It tightens up the old defense heavy combat and then brings it closer to the smoother, faster feel that was introduced in Kiwami 2. Crucially though, the more grounded story tone is still intact, and alongside that you will be getting Yakuza Dark Ties, which is a completely standalone experience that explores a darker corner of that criminal world that Kiryu usually skirts around. There'll be new faces, new factions, and some tactical twist on the classic brawler formula to give it its very own identity. Honestly, this studio has shown time and time again they know exactly how to respect their past while also pushing forward. This polished remake paired with a brand new story is utterly fantastic and a great combo, and I can't wait for both of them to arrive on the 12th of February for our Xbox Series consoles. I am just so happy to say that Cash Cleaner Simulator is also finally going to Xbox since being out on PC now for almost a year, and please do not dismiss this game as it's bloody brilliant. In this one, you're essentially placed into the life of a low-life criminal with a particular specialty, and when your underworld contacts need dirty money to come back squeaky clean, they do call you. That means it's your job to retrieve the money, identify any problems like dirt, blood or counterfeit bills, and then get to work for your not so lovely clients. From my own playtime over on PC now, this game is so addicting, to the point where you'll go into a trance-like state when playing, only just to realize you've spent 5 hours separating and cleaning banknotes and placing them on pallets. The gameplay is also pretty much endless. The game does have a story, although it's not anything special, but you never kind of go into these sim experiences for the story elements. It does arrive though on the 12th of February, and do stay tuned as I will bring you some more content on this one before its launch. Xbox and Game Pass continues to lean heavily into action-heavy indie games these days, and BlazBlue Entropy Effect X is a pretty interesting addition to that pile. Arriving on the 12th, this isn't a traditional BlazBlue entry at all. It's essentially a standalone spin-off within its own universe, all built around roguelike progression rather than competitive fighting. What immediately does stand out to me though is going to be the presentation. The classic BlazBlue sprite work looks utterly fantastic in its motion, and it's really impressive to see how naturally those complex fighter animations do translate into a sort of fast side-scrolling action format. The combat is going to be the real hook though, with deep combo routes and character-specific movesets that reward your experimentation. The individual runs themselves are fairly short. I've had a look online, and there seems to be a sort of variety of around an hour or so for each of them. There also seems to be a ton of variety and mechanical depth as well to give it strong replay value, and even if roguelikes are starting to feel overdone, this one looks strong enough to bring its own identity to it, and I definitely think it's going to stand out amongst the crowd. It does look great, and I can see from the comments on a couple of videos now that many of you are actually quite looking forward to this one. After spending some time out of the spotlight, Disciples Domination is making a return this week, and it's one that I've personally been watching really closely. This one is set 15 years after Liberation, but its newest entry pushes the world of Nevada forward while staying true to what defined the series in the very first place. The battles are still going to be that turn-based aspect, but they're now going to be a lot snappier, built around grid-based encounters that reward your smart positioning. There's going to be stuff as well like faction strength and unit synergy, but outside of combat, the game will open up with a sort of real-time exploration element, letting you uncover hidden lore, side stories, and looming dangers at your own pace. You'll be able to command forces as well from 5 distinct factions, including the long-awaited return of the Mountain Clans as well. This feels like a confident refinement, and for fans of darker methodical RPGs, February 12th just can't come soon enough. If you are looking for a Portal-like experience and you enjoy the likes of the Talos Principle 2 now that that's landed onto Xbox Game Pass, then let me introduce you to ChromaGun 2 Die Hard. This is a first-person puzzle shooter all about colours. You'll basically use the titular ChromaGun to paint walls and droids, and the droids are then magnetically attracted to walls of the same colour. Between the deadly floor tiles, angry droids, and subtractive colour mixing, you'll get to solve tricky logic puzzles wrapped in a comedic story about friendship, redemption, and the multiverse itself. The devs have actually come out and said that they've actually taken everything that fans loved about the original game, that being the witty dialogue, the fiendishly clever puzzles, and the saturated aesthetic, but then dialed it up to 11. If that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will, as it lands towards the end of this week. When this game first popped up at the Xbox Partner Preview event all the way back in December, I genuinely thought it was some kind of supermarket simulator, and then aliens showed up. Roadside Research is actually a co-op chaos game where you and up to 3 friends play as aliens running a roadside gas station while secretly studying humans. On the surface, you'll be stocking shelves, serving customers, and keeping the place running, but behind the scenes, you're observing human behavior and then desperately trying not to blow your extraterrestrial cover. That mix alone sounds like a recipe for disaster in the very best way. It has now been confirmed for game preview with a 12th of February launch date, and it will be arriving day 1 onto Xbox Game Pass. Just keep your expectations in check. It is going to be an early access title, so don't expect anything like achievements and probably not the full amount of content, but it does look like absolute comedy gold with your friends, and I just cannot wait to see what laughs I have in this one. Like clockwork, another ride entry is rolling up, and Ride 6 is set to land for this week. I will be honest with you, I'm not exactly a hardcore bike sim fanatic, but I have spent some time now with Ride 4 and 5, and I've always kind of enjoyed what Milestone delivers here more than the MotoGP games. This year is including a very big shake-up though in what they're calling the new Ride Fest Korea mode, which actually leans into a more festival style structure that definitely gives off Forza Horizon vibes. You'll also be able to pick from 10 real-world racing legends, including Casey Stoner, Troy Bayliss, and Guy Martin, and then take on a huge lineup of events. There also seems to be a massive bike roster as well, with over 340 motorcycles, though I do expect that DLC is probably going to come as expected. On paper, it sounds like a solid evolution rather than a radical change for the series, and I'm kind of curious to see how it feels once we get our hands on it. My honest standout for this entire week without question has to be Reanimal. This one has been high on my list ever since it was revealed, especially knowing that it's coming from the original development team behind Little Nightmares 1 and 2. The premise alone in this one is going to be pretty haunting, and if you've had the chance to play the demo on the Xbox store, you know exactly what I mean. You'll be playing as a brother and sister forced to survive unimaginable horrors while searching for their missing friends, and then you're trying to escape on an island they once call home. Everything about this one just oozes atmosphere. The creature designs are deeply unsettling, the environments feel utterly oppressive, and the tone leans heavily into that hard discomfort rather than cheap jump scares. It's very much feeling like a spiritual successor to Little Nightmares, but way darker, stranger, and just even more grotesque. If you haven't already, I highly recommend you try out the demo as soon as possible on the Xbox store, as it's genuinely chilling. Also, do keep an eye out for my full review nearer to launch, and if you don't want to miss that, then subscribe down below. The largest Xbox Game Pass and even Xbox arrival for this entire week has to be High on Life 2, and after how wildly successful the first game was, expectations are understandably quite sky high. This sequel though will be throwing us straight back into the unhinged universe, where aliens have now flipped the script and are now stuffing humans into zoos. You're once again going to be stepping into the boots of that foul-mouthed bounty hunter, but this time you've got a fresh lineup of talking weapons, new characters, and much bigger worlds to mess around in. Even without Justin Roiland involved, the humour still looks loud, chaotic, and unapologetically weird as humanly possible. One of the standout additions is going to be the skateboard though, which seriously ramps up movement and combat flow, and it looks pretty insane from all the previews I've watched so far. Definitely an unconventional way to spend Valentine's Day, but hey, I'm not going to be complaining this year. Kingdom Come Deliverance is not a new game and has always been out for a few years now, but in some great news, it will be landing onto Xbox Game Pass at the end of this week. This is going to be a return, as I was actually made aware this game was in Game Pass around 5 years ago or so, but it is going to be a solid return as it's one of the best RPGs of all time. After the huge success of the second entry, I know many of you have had this one on your radars, and you definitely need to experience it now that it's becoming part of the service. This one does start the journey of Henry after his parents get murdered, and you basically start as a peasant and then work your way up in the order in medieval Bohemia. It is rumoured we might also get a native Xbox Series version, but we'll have to just wait and see, and just ultimately see if those leaks are actually real. Even so, do stay tuned below with a subscription, as I have a ton of awesome stuff coming your way for this next week. Do remember as well to like this video if you did enjoy, and make sure to subscribe, as I will be bringing you Xbox content on a daily basis. I do recommend you also check out the video on screen now if you want to know a little bit more about Crimson Desert, as I managed to cover the 10 things you need to know about it before its launch.